Hey.
Hi.
It has been a while this time.
Yeah, we made a video and you never posted it. Like,
Yep. Wow. Me, a human, imperfect. Imagine.
Okay, so today we were at church and they were singing, I don't even know what song it was called, but it was like, all my life you have been faithful. That song. And then it's like, all my life you have been good, in case you're trying to find it. And we've just been like going through like this season of just like feeling like we're praying like there's this like wall and like God's not hearing anything. And I have to keep on reminding us like our prayers don't fall on deaf ears. Like he's not indifferent to us. Like he hears it every time. Like we can call upon his name and like darkness flees and he answers. As you can tell by Cole's face, he is going through it. Well, today we walk into church.
What did I do? Why am I being targeted?
Your face was like this. So today we walk into church and we get in there late from nursery and like 101 things are going through my head at the time and I'm just like, I need to go use the bathroom. And in the bathroom I have like a semi meltdown and I start like wiping down the countertop because there's some water on it. And this lady's like walks up and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And she's like, oh, it's okay. And I just remember like just thinking, okay, whatever. And I just walked out the door and I seen Cole and we walk in and they're like, okay, go over here. And this person, I'm like, please God, do not let them sit me up front. Like I do not want to go up to the front row today. And they did not sit us in the front row, but they sit us the next row down. And I was like, okay, God, you heard me. Ha ha ha, you're so funny. And I'm just like praying and trying to get into the mood. And I look over and Cole's like has his hand on his heart and he has his hand raised. And if you know my husband, that is like out of his normal routine. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. And they like again say, all my life you have been faithful, and they just in all my life you've been so good, and they're like, no matter how unfaithful we are to God, he is still like faithful to us. And instantly, like everything that like is so good in our lives started flashing before my eyes, like our house, our cars, like our jobs. And I was like, sometimes I see like the faithfulness of God as a burden. And I just like started like, tears just started coming out of my life because like repeatedly, like these just visions of faithfulness just started playing in my face. And I was like, wow, you have been so faithful. Even when I don't think God is doing it how fast I want him to do it or how I want him to do it. Like he's still faithful. And I was like, oh, okay, like you're still a faithful God. Even when I'm down here on earth, like, are you listening? Do you see the mess I've made?
Who's gonna clean it up? Not me.
And I'm just like, holy cow.
When you say the burden of faith, are you talking about like remaining faithful despite the circumstances?
No, like, okay, so our house, super faithful. Like God was so much in that transaction. If we could give you the whole story, we'd be here for like 2 hours. But it was so much like God was in that situation with us. And now here we are 2 years later and we need a roof. And I'm like, well, this is a burden. And I can honestly say I've probably complained more about my roof than I've prayed about my roof. And that's a big problem. And now we're in this situation. And I'm like, okay, God, how are we gonna pay for this one? And Cole's over here. I've given up. Cole was trying to like justify and find the money and like work it out our way. And he's like, you know what? I can't. Like, it's God. He has to work it for our good. Like, he's going to work it out. And I'm like, he is gonna work it out. And I was like, I see a blessing as also like a burden because it was like, oh yay, I love my house, but then it's like, my house needs maintenance. Oh, God,
I gotta take care of this thing.
Are you sure? Like, And so, like, Cole's blessed with a really great car. But Cole no longer wants this car. He wants a different car. And he's, like, justifying it as, like, well, I want this, oh, I want this, oh, I want this.
I use worldly reasons
to get rid of his car. And I'm
to
like,
justify.
but that car's a blessing. And I'm like,
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just a baby.
yeah, it's a great car. And I'm like, you're not getting rid of it. And, like, so for that one, like, Cole's, like, been just a thorn in my side about trying to get rid of this thing. Every day I'd come home, look at this car, look at this car, look at this car. And I was like, Cole, I don't care. Like, I finally just looked at him one day, I was like, I don't care. And he was like, why are you being so mean and insensitive? And I'm like, because I literally told you at the car lot this was going to happen. And so he's like texting this person back and forth on Facebook Marketplace. And I'm like, oh my
Look,
God.
I want an old truck. They don't sell them anymore.
I was like, oh my God. And so I was like praying about it. And I was like, God, if it's not meant to be, you have to slam this door in his face. I was like, I can't tell him anymore. Like, you're just going to have to slam it. And so he messages me and he's like, hey, because I was with my sister in town. And he's like, hey, can you call me? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he calls me and he says, guess what? Carvana's not going to give me as much for my car. And
I was not crying.
this is how I imagined it in my head. And this man wants way too much money. And I was like, you know what, Cole? I'm going to tell you something. I asked God to slam the door in your face, and he did. So take it as it is. He's like, yep, you're right. I'm not going to worry about it no more. Not even 2 hours later, this homeboy calls me back.
I found another one.
I found another one. It's a great deal. I was like... So, back to the main point of this video is, like, we have to remember, like, God is faithful, like, and not only, like, the cars and the house flash before my eyes, but, like, our marriage and our friendships and our families, and even my dogs, like, they flash before my eyes, and just, like, the small things, like my shoes, because God's like, this is the shoe woman, like, I speak her language, I made her this way. Like, my shoes that were on my feet literally were like, I was like, those are so a blessing, because I know so many people that, like, would want them, but they don't get them because of the value. And I'm like, that's just so, like, that's the faithfulness of God, that, like, I could want those, and he knew I'd want them. And he had already blessed me beforehand by somebody else. And they was like, oh my gosh, I can get these shoes. Like, he knew those were what I wanted. And he had somebody else bless me to get them. And I was just like, that's how faithful God is. Like, he's like in all those, like, huge things of our life, but he's also in, like, those minor details of our lives. Like, he knows the little things. And I'm like, if he knows the numbers of hair on my head, I'm like, that's how faithful this man is. And I'm like, whew. And, like, I think about that verse in Matthew where he's talking and he's like, the birds of the sky, you don't see them, like, collecting things and storing them away, and they don't worry about, like, what they're going to eat, where they're going to sleep, the clothes that they're going to wear on their back. They don't worry about those things. So, like, why do you worry? And he goes on to say, like, what does worrying add a day to your life? It doesn't. And I was like, wow. And so today, like, and that's nothing like our pastors even preached about. We're in a marriage series. And so I was like, God just gave me that little piece of, like, information, because I'm like, okay. And it was like, I don't need to worry about where the money for my roof is going to come from. In my worldly eyes, does that make sense? Absolutely not. But you know what? I don't get to look at this with worldly eyes. So, yeah. Anything to say?